and girls, and welcome to Mrs. Hoover's art class. Today's project is going to be about your family. So my question to you is, how would you describe your family? If I was going to describe my family growing up, one thing I would say is that we were musical because my dad played the piano and we all played some kind of instrument, and we even had some little band for a little while. So I would say they were musical. My dad was always fixing things around our house, so I would say we were handy. And let's see, my parents always thought it was really important to go to college, and I thought they were very smart. And also my family just loved to joke around. They were all about a good joke, so I would say a good sense of humor. They were funny. So tell me about your family. Do you have a big family or small? Is your family adventurous, silly, loud, or quiet? Do they like to exercise, or do they like to take naps? Are they musical, artistic, funny? Are they playful or serious? Do they like to watch TV, or do they like sports? So take a moment now and think about your family. What are they like? You can look at some of these words to give you ideas or add your own words. So I want you to think of 4 things that describe your family, and then I want you to write them in your sketchbook. So now that you have those words, how can we use those to describe your family and to tell your family's story? There's lots of ways that families tell their stories. Maybe in your house you have photos on the wall that tell the story about your family. Or perhaps, does anyone in your family have photo albums? Or another way a family tells stories is actually by telling the stories to each other. For example, have you ever heard any stories from your mom or dad about each other or about your grandparents? So those family stories are told just sitting around and talking. Or maybe someone in your family keeps a journal, or maybe you keep a journal and telling the story about your family in the journal. So there's lots of ways that our families tell their stories. But in the Pacific Northwest, the stories of families were told in a different way. Perhaps you have seen something like this. Have you ever seen these totem poles before? The Pacific Northwest used totem poles to tell the story of their families. When you look at these totem poles, what do you see? What does it look like? Do you see animals? Because what they did is they would use animals to tell the story. You can see there's several animals and they're stacked one on top of the other, and each one of those animals represented something about the family, like maybe an eagle would be on the totem pole, and that might represent bravery. Or maybe a bear might represent strength, or a wolf might represent something that like cunning, or being sly or being wise. Maybe an owl would represent wisdom. So we don't really know exactly, but they were assigned meanings, and that's how their family would communicate or tell their story. So what we're going to do is we are going to make some totem poles to tell your family's story. And we're going to use the 4 words that you came up with. What I want you to do is think about some different animals that could represent those ideas. You don't have to use any particular animal that's traditionally used, but here's a list of what a lot of totem poles used for the representation of the animals. So you can use this list, and that might give you ideas. Or you can come up with your own animals. So if you really like a dog, maybe you could put a dog in your totem pole, and that would be loyal, or maybe if your word was funny and you might include a monkey to represent that, or if your word was your family, maybe your family is really busy and you put in a beaver, or maybe you would use a cat. It just doesn't matter what animal you want, because you're going to choose the animals that represent the ideas that you came up with. So I want you to think of the animals that you want to use and assign the meaning to each animal. So if you like guinea pigs, maybe that means loving. Before we get started, let's look and see what some other students have done. So let's get started. You will need a piece of 9 by 12 drawing paper, a pencil, a ruler, and some colorful markers. We will be cutting our totem poles out and painting a background, but I'll show you how to do that later. To create your totem poles, you can look at the pictures of totem poles in Mrs. Hoover's idea book. There are a lot of different pictures and drawings to choose from. You can start with a blank paper, or you can use this totem pole template, also found in Mrs. Hoover's idea book. Or if you want, you can just keep watching and I will show you how to do a step-by-step drawing of a totem pole. So let's get started. The first thing we need to do is decide what you want to use for paper. You have some choices. You can use this template and draw directly on that. You can use this as a guide and transfer that to this picture by either tracing over it, like hold it up in a window, or you can kind of see through it, or you can just draw directly on the paper. And I am going to draw directly on the paper. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to make my totem pole symmetrical. In order to do that, I need to fold it in half. Now, do you know what symmetrical means? Let me show you some pictures and give you some clues. If you don't know what symmetrical means, look at these pictures and then let me know what you think. So symmetrical means that one side is exactly the same as the other. So if I put my hands next to each other, they're symmetrical. I could fold them together like a butterfly, and one side is exactly the same as the other. So our totem poles, if you'll notice, they are symmetrical as well. In order to help us to do that, we can fold our paper in half lengthwise, and our drawing will be symmetrical. We're going to draw half of our totem pole on one side. Now, totem poles were made out of the trees that were very tall and straight, so we're going to draw a guideline on the side of our paper here. And I'm going to bring it in about 1.5 inches over to the edge here. I'm put a little dot, slide up here 1.5 inches, and a little dot. When you're drawing this line, you can make your line light. I am going to make mine darker so that you can see it. All right, so this is kind of going to be the half of the width of our totem pole. I'm going to do 4 different animals. I'm going to do an eagle, a cat, a wolf, and a bear. And I'm going to start at the bottom and build up. But I want to kind of plan out where they're going to go. An eagle, actually, oftentimes an eagle will take up 2 places. Like on this template, you can see the top and the middle section. Often on a totem pole, the eagle, this is the eagle's head and this is the eagle's body with the wings. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to kind of squeeze in the eagle with the cat, the wolf, and the bear, because I want to show you all of those animals. But you can just do the eagle and 2 other animals if you would like. So my eagle will start up about here at the top, and then it'll go down to about here. And then I'm going to have my other 3 animals here and here. I'm making it a little bit more curved, and this one I want to curve just a little bit as well to make it look more like it's going around, like it's a round totem pole. So I'm going to start at the bottom, and at the bottom I'm going to make a bear. Now, like I said, we're going to do half of our image so that when we open it up, our image will be symmetrical. So first we're going to do, I'm looking at these photos here, and I'm going to do the drawing of the bear. So I'm going to start with his ear coming up at the top. Now, a lot of times with these animals, part of the animal will kind of overlap into the animal above it, and that's okay. So this bear's ear is going to be kind of overlapping the wolf a little bit, and that's just fine. And then on my bear, he has these kind of almost like eyebrows. And then I'm going to draw the totem pole eyes. A lot of times have double lines, and they have this sort of a shape to them. Okay, then the bear's mouth. Totem poles are very stylized. What I mean by that is that they don't necessarily look exactly like the animal. They have certain shapes that they often use with the bear for totem poles. All right, so that's basically all I'm going to do for my bear. And what I want to show you is how I transfer it to the other side. There are different ways to do that. If you have a window, then you can hold this up to the window, turn it over and hold it up to the window, and you'll be able to see through the other side. You can almost see it here, but to make it easier, we're going to outline with our Sharpie marker. Now, if I were to turn this over, I can kind of see through it. Almost enough to where I could trace it, but not quite. It's kind of hard to see. I could take it to the window and hold it up and trace it. And if you don't have a window, then here's another trick you can do. You can turn it, instead of just flipping it over, you can fold it like this. Okay, so I'm folding it. I'm actually going to draw on the back because I can see this better now since I am looking through here. So I am going to trace over my bear with my marker. Okay, whoops, this last part down here at the bottom. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open it up, and as you can see, hopefully, there, you can see the image that it's kind of easier to see. So now I can just trace over on this side. And I have my bear. Perfectly symmetrical. All right, now the next animal that we want to do, fold this back up again, we're going to do our wolf. Let me switch back to pencil. Okay. So again, the wolf's ears are going to overlap into my next animal, and that is all right. So I'm looking at this photo, and I notice the wolf has these kind of almost eyebrows, and then his eye, sort of an area around his eye, looks like that. And then this wolf here, I'm going to make him a little bit kind of, not mean, but serious looking, and by that, doing half of his eye, that makes him look a little more serious. I think I went a little too far with that. There's his mouth. Come down a bit more with that. There. he's got some fangs coming down the front. I'm going to overlap those a little bit. He also has a tongue sticking out. So I'm going to do half of his tongue and erase there. And his teeth. Okay, so I'm ready to outline with my Sharpie, and then we'll be ready for the step after that. Okay, I think I will take my wolf now to the window and show you how you can trace at the windows. Okay, so here I am at the window, and I don't know if you can see that very well, but I can see pretty clearly. It makes it very easy to trace, and I can also, helps me to skip a step so I don't have to do it on the back and then flip it over. So if you have access to a window, this is really handy. And I tell my kids, I don't mind if they trace as long as they're tracing their own work. So here's our totem pole so far. Now above this animal, we are going to put our cat. So again, my ears are going to poke into the animal above, and that's okay. We'll give him some cat eyes. And a second line, and then you know how cats have those little skinny eyes. And they have sort of a triangle nose. And then they have that cute little rounded part and little mouth. And let's give him some whiskers. And then I'm going to draw in some lines on the top. The other thing I can do is I can add just a little bit of detail on the side for my cat. So that looks pretty good. And then I'm going to go ahead and outline that. But before I do that, I know that I'm going to put an eagle up here. And a lot of times eagles have their little claws hanging over the edge. So because I kind of planned out my drawing, I know that ahead of time before I outline this, I'm going to put in my eagle's claws so I don't miss that. Okay, so I'm ready to outline. Okay, I've traced the other side of my cat, and as you can see, I have a symmetrical cat. Touch up a little bit. All right, so the last thing to do, fold it back up, I'm going to do my eagle. Now the eagle, like I said, he usually takes up, he's a little bit taller, and he has the wings that come out kind of in the middle of his body too. So I'm going to add those first, and I like using my ruler for that. I'm going to go all the way to the edge, then come down and maybe, it doesn't matter, just about somewhere, not quite all the way, because I'm going to make these wings curved. And I'm going to add a second line. And I'm going to add a second line here too. Okay. Now, looking at my eagle's face, he's got kind of they have sort of feathery ears. So I'm going to give him that, and then add this double line here for his eyes. Okay, then I'm going to give him a sort of a shape around his eyes, and then his nose, his beak. Come down like that. Okay, so when I open that up, that will look like a beak there, and give him a little triangle nostril. And then under his beak would be his mouth. A lot of times, totem poles have this kind of a shape of mouth. Very stylized. And then since this is the bottom of him, I'm going to give him some feathers. Could make those a little closer together. I think I will. So I can put some more in there. There we go. Almost put another row in there. Let's just do it. And then for his wings, I'm going to use some, you can do a lot of different things. You could do curved feathers or squares or rectangles. I'm going to do some triangle shapes. All right, so I need to kind of look at this and plan out so that I've got room for full triangle shapes, and then maybe some circles. The same thing I plan with my circles. Let's do one side, the other side, and then I can kind of fill in the gaps, whether I want 2 more or 3 more. Okay, I kind of like that. So now I think I am ready to take it to the window and trace. Well, actually, I need to outline, don't I, first, and then I'll take it to the window. So I have finished outlining on this side, and there is our finished totem pole. So now we are ready to add colors, and we'll go use our markers. Before I color, I want to go ahead and erase all my stray pencil lines. So go ahead and do that. So as you can see, I have colored my totem pole. If you were making a real totem pole and you were one of the peoples of the Pacific Northwest, you might have used natural colors. In other words, you might have gotten your yellow from tree moss, or the blue you might have gotten from berries. A lot of times they would get the green from the juices of grasses, and the black would come from soot. I don't know if you know what soot is, but have you ever seen the inside of a fireplace where it's black on the inside? That black comes from burned wood, and so that can get on your fingers and be pretty messy. But it also works really great for adding color to things. So they would use soot, and they would get colors from clay and roots. But you and I get to use markers. So I just chose a wide range of colors, and then I even went in afterwards with my brown crayon, and you can do this if you want, and I just kind of went over it lightly, some of the brighter areas, to sort of make it look like it's wood. You can do that if you'd like. When you're finished with adding the color to your totem pole, then we're going to cut it out, and I'm going to show you next how to make the background using paint. We're going to paint a background that looks something like this, and to do that you're going to need a piece of blue paper. You can use black paper too if you want. You're going to need some water, a cup of water. You're going to need some paint brushes. I have two different paint brushes here, a smaller one and a larger one. And you're going to need something to put your paint on. You can use a foam plate or any kind of plate. And you're going to need your paint. I'm going to use tempera paints. So I've got green, I'm going to use yellow, white, blue, and black. So we're going to put a little bit of paint in our plate. I like to tell my kids to put about a quarter size paint in your plate to get started. We can always add more. Okay, I've got my paint ready to go. And to start out my landscape, I'm going to do the background hill. So I'm going to paint this hill in here. And to do that, I'm going to choose some blue and some white. Because it's a snowy day, it's mostly white, but a little bit of blue. Sometimes in the snow, you'll see a little bit of blue. And I'm going to double load my brush, which means I'm going to take the white and then I'm going to dip it in a little bit of blue and have both colors. Now, I don't care if it's smeary, which it's going to be a little bit. I like the lines that makes. So a touch of blue, and I'm making a little hill here. Just a touch of it. Okay, now I'm going to do the other side. That is the hill that's in the front, and I'm going to use a little more white with that one. So I'm going to squirt some more white on my plate. And I'm ready to do the front. Touch of blue. So I don't want it to be all smooth and even. I want it to have kind of lines in it, and it'll make it look more realistic, like it's really snowy. It's not all the same smooth color. And a little bit of, I'm going to finish this up. I see I didn't get enough there. And then I'll go back to my white. You can always kind of wipe your brush off a little bit on your protective paper. And then make a nice clean white edge there. Okay, now I'm ready for my trees. And my trees, I'm just going to have a few trees on this side and a few on that side, because I'm going to be putting my totem pole in the center. So I don't really have to have very many trees here. So I'm going to put him there. So I'm going to do my trees. So to do that, I'm going to kind of wipe my brush off a little bit, get some of that blue out. I don't care if there's a little blue there. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of green and a touch of black. And I'm going to make my first tree over here. Now I've just painted this white, so I have to be a little careful not to get too much white in there, but as you can see, I'm just making little wispy marks for my tree. A little bit of green, touch of black, a few more branches. Green, touch of black. All right. The other side. Green, touch of black. Okay, so I'm going to go back here and make some trees on this other side. I think I'll put another little tree in front. And picking up green, touch of black. I think I'm going to switch over to my smaller brush. Since these trees are farther away, it'll give them a little more detail. Okay. That's really all I need for that. Now I do need to make a trunk. So I needed to have some brown, but I didn't buy any brown when I was at the store. They didn't have any actually. And I want to show you, take this chance to show you how to make a brown. So let's look at the color wheel. So I need to make a brown, and I don't have a brown, but I do have my primary colors. Do you know what the primary colors are? Primary colors are going to be the yellow, the blue, and the red. So I do have that. I have yellow and blue and red. When you have all three primary colors, you can mix all the other colors that you need. I also have a white and a black, and that will help me in making my brown. So, do you know what colors I will get if I mix together yellow and blue? So these two colors, what do I get? Yes, I get a green. What about if I mix together yellow and red? I get orange. And finally, red and blue gives me purple. So what happens if I mix all the colors together? Have you ever done that? Have you ever mixed all the colors together? Let's see what happens. So here are my primary colors. What happens if I mix together yellow and blue? What color do I get? You see what it's starting to look like? Yes, I get a green. All right, what happens if I mix together yellow and red? What am I going to get? Can you see what color that is? I'm starting to get orange. And finally, what about red and blue? Can you see that color there? I am getting purple. Did you know what those colors would be? So what happens if I mix all of the colors together, all of the primary colors? What color will I get? Have you ever done that before? Let's see what happens. All right, if I mix them all together, it starts to look kind of muddy, doesn't it? Depending on how much I have. So it starts to get sort of muddy, sort of a muddy, kind of a browny color, which is sort of what I needed. So if you mix all of the colors together, you end up with a color that looks like mud, which is just what we want. So now we have a beautiful muddy color, and it looks kind of brown. So I can use this for my trunks. So let me set this aside, and I'll bring my painting back. And I'm going to paint my trunks in. All right, next thing I need to do is I need to make a little moon up there, so I'm going to use my white paint and wash my brush out. I think I'll use this smaller brush. And dry it off. Oops, got some color in there still. There we go. And I'll pick up some white. And I'm just going to make a little moon here. And if I'm going to go in a circle like that, and then I'm just going to kind of give it some larger circles, kind of like it's glowing. And then I'm going to give it some snow. Now, if you're in a place that you could splatter paint, you can splatter this on if you want to. That can get kind of messy, but it's also kind of fun. But I'm just going to dab it on. Now, I also want, since it's snowing, I'm going to put some snow on my branches. So I'm going to take my small brush, I'm going to get a little bit of white and just gently make a little line of snow along each branch. It doesn't have to be much, just like a dusting of snow. It's on the top of each one. You can see I'm going kind of quickly because it doesn't have to be exact. I also don't go over them because I don't want to, I pick up a lot of white, I don't want to get any of that black on there. Okay, that's all I'm going to do. A little bit of white there and a little bit more snow coming across. Okay, I am finished with my painting. I'm going to let it dry and then I will add my totem pole. So now my painting is dry and I have already cut out my totem pole, as you can see, and I am ready for the last step, which is putting them together. I'm going to use a glue stick, but you could also use liquid glue. I have a protective paper on my table and I want to be sure to put plenty of glue on my picture, especially around the edges. So now I just line it up and press down on all the edges. There, all finished. Boys and girls, I hope you had fun today in Mrs. Hoover's art class and that you will join me again for more fun art projects. And remember, every day is a great day to create art. Bye!